When the United States joined the war, the same appeal was made.
We must win this war. But we can't win this war unless you women take over the jobs that men are leaving. English women have done it for 3 years. American women are now doing it all over the country.
How do you like it?
I love it.
But the temporary nature of it all was constantly emphasized.
And Lee Dunning, who now welds on landing barges. And what about after this war, Lee?
Well, this job belongs to some soldier. And when he comes back, he can have it.
Oh, that's swell.
In the 1940s and 50s, in the country which took so much pride in its progressiveness, there was a return to the idea that women were there to support men.
Throughout the length and breadth of America, in every city and town, every day in the week is somebody's wedding day.
I pronounce that they are husband and wife.
No ceremony more deeply symbolizes every woman's hopes.
Women were expected to find satisfaction at home, bringing up a family.
As I was growing up, I dreamed about Prince Charming. I did meet him. And I wanted to have a home and a family and a normal, average, ordinary life with children. And I really didn't have tremendous expectations.
Films and advertisements on both sides of the Atlantic helped reinforce the stereotype, equating happiness with fulfillment at home.
Difference if you're rich or poor, or if you're smart or dumb. A woman's place in this whole world is under some man's thumb.
Glad you dropped in. Amazing, isn't it? Look at that. And she did the washing and ironing today for a family of 5. The 4 of us and the baby upstairs.
On the first morning of our honeymoon, I discovered my beautiful bride didn't know the first thing about coffee. And I love good coffee. Wife, I said, this is Maxwell House. So remember, be a good little Maxwell housewife, and this honeymoon could last forever.
Woman's love is to give and give, and go on giving.
Carol took a general home economics course. Not one which would lead to professional employment, but one which fitted her for that very important career of being Mrs. Bill Johnson.
And of course, women were less technically competent than men.
Open the door.
Sorry, honey. My watch stopped.
That's because you forgot to wind it again, Alice.
Even when women's energy was acknowledged, the tone was patronizing.
What is that whipcord resilience that lets the weaker sex play half the night, then bob up clear-eyed, ready for the next morning's work?
In fact, a third of all American women worked outside the home. But in the 1950s, most were still restricted to low-paying menial jobs with no chance of becoming supervisors or managers. At the Southern Bell Phone Company, the management had a clear policy on what was appropriate for women. They could be operators, but go no higher. Lorena Weeks worked on a switchboard in Atlanta, Georgia.
Telephone operators work around the clock, and I work split hours so that I could be with my children in the afternoon. I'd go to work at 11, get off at 2 in the afternoon, pick them up from school, feed them, and go back to work at 7 o'clock at night. That was hard. I worked 17 years before I had a half day for Christmas with my children. I'd watch these men, the switchmen, and work that I felt that I could do. And this meant so much more pay and better hours. And it was just type work that I would like to do too.
Whatever education women had, or whatever their interests, the limits were the same. Dusty Rhodes graduated from college in 1950, but knew her childhood dream of being a pilot would never be realized.
We had the national air races in Cleveland every year, and so aviation was very big in my life.
And I had, up till I was in high school and found out from my father, you can't be an airline pilot, darling. They don't hire ladies. It broke my heart, but so I settled on being maybe a flight attendant, maybe stewardess.
Every day I'm learning more. It'll make me a good stewardess, a better human being, and after a while, maybe, a better wife. At least I can dream, can't I?
The image of a stewardess is of a young, single girl. And the airlines wanted to perpetuate that almost as an image that the male could get on there and think, maybe I may have a date tonight.
Eastern Airlines presents The Losers.
She's awkward. Not very friendly. But she's too young. She bites nails. She wears glasses. Honey, no, the other. She's married. Well.
Like everyone else, Dusty Rhodes was expected to stop the job when she turned 32.
That made me angry. It really did. It just it violated my sense of fair play that pilots can be fired at age 60, and we were fired at age 32. There's something was wrong there.
By the 1960s, more Western women were coming out of higher education than ever before, with new ambitions for themselves. And as prosperity grew and new appliances went into more homes, some of the old drudgery was removed.
These labor-saving, time-saving devices in our homes free a woman so she...
As this happened, many American women grew dissatisfied and frustrated. They found their manifesto in a book that became a bestseller in 1963. In The Feminine Mystique, New York academic Betty Friedan wrote a devastating critique of the modern woman's situation. Women, as well as men, can only find their identity in work that uses their full capacities. A woman cannot find her identity in the dull routine of housework, she wrote. If a job is to be the way out of the trap for a woman, it must be a job that she can take seriously as part of a life plan, work in which she can grow as part of society.
The majority of American women in many age groups are working outside the home, but most of them are working at low-paid, relatively low-skilled jobs, often in a dead end from professional advancement, and they are not really taking part in the decision-making areas of American life in anything except token numbers.
For some, like Colleen Perot, who'd got married after the war, Friedan's ideas were anathema.
I thought, how strange. What is wrong with this woman? Everybody I knew was not oppressed and was very happy and was not miserable, and we were all enjoying raising our families.
But for other housewives like Jackie Ceballos, the feminine mystique was a revelation.
Betty Friedan was speaking to me. I was a married woman trapped. It just expanded my life. The first thing I thought of was, instead of blaming my husband or myself, I realized it wasn't us, it was the society.
In 1963, American society was changing fast. The campaign for civil rights for black Americans was making real progress. Women's grievances became another cause. They called for an end to discrimination on grounds of gender, too. The Great March in Washington that year led to a landmark victory for all minorities, and also for women. President Johnson's Civil Rights Act of 1964 guaranteed equal rights for everyone. With the passing of the act, women started to apply for jobs they'd previously been barred from. Telephone operator Lorena Weeks saw her chance.
I was very excited. I knew this would mean that women could have better paying jobs. I bid on the job for Switchman, and my bid was returned, stating that this was not a job being awarded to women.
Citing the Civil Rights Act, Weeks took her fight to be a telephone engineer to court. But she lost when the company found an obscure law that barred women from lifting more than 30 pounds.
It was just foolish to use something like that against women. women every day live with babies that weigh more than 30 pounds.
Lorena Weeks finally got to do the job, but it took 5 years and an appeal to the Supreme Court.
It was absolutely wonderful. I couldn't believe it was over. I was numb. This was a point of law. It was a wrong that needed to be made right, and that's what I was trying to do, to make things better.
But it was a scientific breakthrough, not a change in the law, that made the most difference to women's lives. The birth control pill did more than anything else to give them an entirely new sort of freedom.
This is a highly effective means of contraception. I think the figures currently being used indicate that it's about 99-point-something effective.
By preventing ovulation, the pill let women control their fertility as never before. By 1966, 6 million American women used the contraceptive pill. By 1968, 11 million. Almost overnight, long-held constraints on sexual behavior could be thrown aside. Moral attitudes were changing, and a sexual revolution was underway. Starting at university in Michigan in 1969, Amy Cohen had freedom her mother's generation had never known.
It was just like a new world had opened up to me. I'm 19 years old, I'm at a big university, and the world is telling me, and Betty Friedan is telling me, I can do anything I want. It's like going from 0 to 100, and your mind spins. We didn't know quite what we were doing in our relationships, but they were going to be equal. Equal was our word. Well, one mistake, and you're off in the suburbs, home having babies and starting a family, and it was over.
Amy Cohen asked the Student Health Clinic for the pill.
I was raised that I wasn't going to have sex until I was walking down the aisle. And so there I sat as a college student with my wonderful partner in the waiting room, and I'm thinking, if we're all equal, why am I in here by myself? Having to choke out that I needed the birth control pill. It sounds funny now, but, you know, when I was 19 and it was real hard.
Women now expected the pill would make it easier to combine children with a career. Amy Cohen went on to graduate, married, and planned her family with precision.
I figured out exactly when I needed to get pregnant so that this baby would be born 2 weeks after finals, and then I'd have a 6-week maternity leave, and then I'd teach a class, and then I'd be full-time again in the fall. And it happened. Twins.
And though nature could still confound the best-laid plans, the pill brought a new equality to relationships. Annie Lou Elias was determined to have a small family, though she knew her husband wanted a large one.
Taking the pill meant breaking with tradition, for one thing. I would have had, or I should have had, all the children my husband wanted. Without the pill, he would have been able to control me. Otherwise, he didn't even know when I took it. I hid them so well that I could keep on taking them and said, I don't know why I'm not getting pregnant.
Using the pill, Annie Lou Elias kept her children to 2.
It was like stopping the whole mechanism in the world against women and against myself. I stopped being subject to things and being a person.
In the age of the pill, and with Betty Friedan as their Bible, American activists began what soon became a mass movement.
In the name of the Mother, the Daughter, and the Holy Granddaughter, women.
They knew the importance of publicity and went all out to court it. They challenged every example of male dominance, including the church. Jackie Ceballos, who'd felt trapped, became a leading campaigner.
From childhood, little boys think that they're going to grow up to be God, and this is consciousness raising. We say, hey, church, if you really, really think of all human beings, you better start changing that image of, you see that thing, and God created woman in her own image.
It was a fabulous, fabulous time because it was like a fever of excitement of all the women changing their lives.
But I'm talking about the partnership because if marriage is anything, it's a partnership.
I mean if somebody else takes care of that child. This is what I meant.
But what is your responsibility to the kids?
There was an anger welling up in you all the time. Here we were, American women, we had the best life in the world. What did we want? They didn't understand that we wanted to be thinking human beings and take responsibility of running this world equally with men.
To the feminists, the annual television beauty pageant seemed a gross offense.
Miss Illinois is Miss America. We are going to sing your song. Oh, there she is, Miss America.
Inside, one set of young women accepted the chauvinist baubles. Outside, others carried on with more consciousness raising. Jackie Sabias was there again.
We threw bras and girdles and stockings, high-heeled shoes and cosmetics into the trash can. The press loved it, and we learned very early on that the press liked crazy things, so let's use the press. We didn't burn any bras. It would have happened if they had allowed us to have a fire.
The stunts got the coverage they wanted, but at some risk to their reputation.
For those who think that the women's liberation movement is a joke vaguely connected with burning bras and getting in the men-only bars, may I disabuse you of that notion. It is about equal pay and equal opportunity in the job market.
I am woman, hear me roll, in numbers too big to ignore.
But despite the setbacks, Western women were managing to do things they'd not done before.
'Cause I've heard it all before.
They could drive racing cars,
No one's ever gonna keep me down again.
play baseball,
It just felt so good to play. No one could tell me I can't do something just because I'm a girl.
In the professions, they were a tiny minority. In business, they complained of a glass ceiling. But in theory, there were now no limits.
First American woman to venture into space will be Dr. Sally K. Ride.
Shirley Chisholm becomes the first black woman nominated for president.
From the 1980s on, commercials told a different story, glamorizing a new type of woman who was taking charge.
What are those?
They're the best. We generally recommend those for ground coffee.
We'll buy all you have of these.
Hadn't I better clear that with the boss?
You just have.
With the high-tech skills you learn in the Navy, when it comes time for you to say something on an interview.
I have an extensive background in avionics and electronics. I'm computer literate, and I'm pretty good with people.
You'll actually have something to say.
I hadn't really noticed until I was in my 30s when I kind of looked up and realized that, you know, I made a very decent salary and I had a very responsible job and I had wonderful children. Then I realized how personally I had benefited from all the social changes I had spent my entire life trying to have happen.
We can cross over 50 time zones in less than a week, and it's a schedule that gives me headaches. I have a crew and 400 passengers that count on me.
It gives me a big thrill when I go up that cockpit and I see a gal. I could be a pilot now. I could be a doctor instead of a nurse. I'd be a pilot instead of the flight attendant. Be a senator instead of the secretary.